Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or if you're watching this on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THL staff writer Brandon P. Joining me tonight from Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Indiana, is our very own publisher, Mr. Andrew Jones. And AJ, we just watched North Carolina fall to 5-3 on the season with its third consecutive loss, losing to Indiana 77-65. North Carolina was led in scoring by Pete Nance, who had 15 points and 12 rebounds. Armando Bacot chipped in with 12 points and 10 rebounds. But AJ, the thing I wanted to talk to you about, the big men, they led the Tar Heels in scoring, but North Carolina was dominated in the paint. They were outscored 50-24. So from your point of view, why did the Hoosiers have so much success in the paint against the Tar Heels tonight?
Well, I asked the first question to Hubert in the press conference, and I even prefaced it by saying, boy, there's a lot of places I could go. And Hubert says, okay, go. And I started with points in the paint allowed. It was 53 weeks ago when we were in the Mohegan Sun last year when Purdue scored 50 points in the paint against Carolina. And that was an early symbol of issues that the team had to overcome. And in large part, they did overcome it. There were some ugly flare-ups at times, but it usually coincided with shutting a team down on the perimeter, and they would often win those games. Today, 50 points in the paint. So I asked him, okay, 50 points in the paint, what was the problem? And he said Trace Jackson Davis. Now, he's not wrong. Trace Jackson Davis was the best player on the floor tonight. He's probably the best NBA prospect that was here. He's a very, very good player. He's very difficult to guard. He gets a guy in his hip. He's really quick. I thought that some of the things that Armando needs to improve on if he's going to play at the next level, and Pete, because they were both guarding him some, and Pete has guarded him in the past, by the way. I thought that they both were not real quick. They didn't deal with that spin move or drop step, but it wasn't just Trace Jackson Davis. However, what he did, Carolina had to pay so much attention to him that it opened up things for other guys. He had 21 points, and that means that they still had 29 other points in the paint, and not all those points were in the paint too. So I think that Indiana had a lot of success getting into the lane. They had some drives that were uncontested at times, and a lot of those points in the paint came on fast breaks. They had 17 fast break points, which we'll get into in a minute, some of the issues that Carolina had offensively. But they had no answers for Jackson Davis. They had no answers for some of the other stuff that Indiana was doing. And they allowed some mid-range jumpers and that kind of thing. Indiana wasn't real good at all from the perimeter. They were so good in the paint. They got a lot of easy looks that I just kind of thought, you could see that number piling up as the game went on. I didn't know how Carolina was going to be able to stop that. It's like a sieve that just opens wider and wider and wider as the game goes on. And I think the flip side of that, Brandon, was that Carolina was stymied in the paint on the other end. I don't have the number in front of me, but at one point, because I haven't had time, we just finished the interviews, I haven't had time to dive into it. But at one point, Carolina was 1 for 10 on layups and 0 for 1 on dunks.
Yep.
So they were giving stuff that wasn't highly contested in the paint, and everything that they did on the other end was contested. So Indiana won this game because they were the much better front line tonight on both ends of the court. It's sort of like in the trenches in football. If you lose in the trenches, you're going to lose the game. And when North Carolina's best player is in the paint and you don't run a lot of stuff through him, although I think at times they tried, but Indiana did a good job pushing the guards out, so it made those entries a lot more difficult. When that happens, you're not going to win basketball games, especially when the Tar Heels shoot as poorly as they did. So they lost this game first and foremost in the paint, but there were other reasons they lost as well.
Yeah, you're right. The numbers are Indiana had 30 points worth of layups, while North Carolina had 12 points worth of layups, if you were wondering. And obviously, Indiana did a great job keeping Carolina out of the paint, forcing their offense to operate further out on the court, and it led to bad shots. And that's the next thing I want to get into, the offensive woes. North Carolina shot 33.9% from the field, only 5 for 18 from the three-point line, AJ. If it wasn't for the free throw line, I'm pretty sure this game would have been a 20-point blowout. And even towards
it would have been humiliating.
Yeah, and even towards the end of the game, the free throw line started betraying the Tar Heels. What did you see from an offensive perspective? Why did they struggle so much offensively tonight?
Every aspect of what they did was a struggle. There wasn't anything on offense. In fact, a couple of the guys, I'm not going to name them, a couple of the guys in the locker room said that they kind of felt like players were watching other players waiting for someone to make a play to give them a spark. So what's happened is, and we've talked about the lack of movement at times, the lack of screening, the lack of cuts. It's when you have five guys who are out of the lane, there all that stuff that they do with the ball in the perimeter is easier to defend because there's less room in between everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I looked down on the court. We were pretty high up in the media section. There's nobody in the lane. Armando's 15, 20 feet away, and he tried playing point guard again and lost the ball and trying to make a play. Nothing was there. So their spacing was bad. Their movement was bad. They didn't screen well. They didn't use screens well. They took bad shots as a result. I think they got panicked in some possessions. They took some shots in the middle of the shot clock that you kind of, if you didn't know what the shot clock was, you would think it was 3, 2, 1. Those are shots they can get later in the shot clock, and that's kind of gotten away from them. That cost them the game, I thought, against Alabama, and it was a problem against Iowa State. It's been problems in other games. So I'm going to try to bounce through some of the specifics of the offensive issues. So I talked to Puff Johnson about this, and he said, and I will name him because it's on the video that we ran on our channel, my interview with Puff, and he agreed that kind of stagnant. It's that it's almost as if they're wearing ankle weights on offense. They just don't have any cohesion or connection at all. And so it's almost like they don't know what to do offensively. I can recall one time down the court where they got a shot that Hubert drew up, and that was Caleb's missed three early in the second half.
Yeah.
Otherwise, whatever he was drawing up wasn't working. They went away from it. I don't think this team does the freelance motion as much as Royce did. So when something's not there, they know how to play off each other and find looks that way. We don't see this team doing that much at all. Certainly not tonight.
Thanks.
They had 5 assists. That's been a problem all year. They're not getting assists nearly the high percentage on made baskets as they have in the past. It's one of the standards of the program, along with rebounding. And they only had 10 turnovers tonight. But Hubert talked about this, and I asked him a follow-up. 7 of them led to breakouts. And those were easy baskets. One player had 3 of them, Galloway. He had 3 wide open, those are points in the paint too. So, and the biggest one was Carolina had the ball. They were down 59-52. I can't remember exactly how much time was left. RJ got stripped from behind. It led to a run out for Galloway. And they were in position. I'm thinking to myself, I thought they fought. The people in social media that say they weren't playing hard, I don't think that's accurate. I thought they played hard. They just didn't play well, and their minds are all cluttered right now. But they were in position. If they get a bucket there, they can make Indiana tight. Because Indiana should have blown them out early. Yeah. But they didn't. But that strip and that fast break layup is kind of the clincher in a lot of ways. Let me throw another number at you. This is unbelievable here. Carolina was 2 for its first 16. All right. They were 2 for their last 8 in the first half. It was a minute 22 sandwiched in between. They were 4 for 4. So for 18 minutes and 38 seconds of the first half, they were combined 4 for 24. There was the first 10 plus minutes. They had 2 field goals, and they were both long threes by RJ and Caleb was a bank 3. So they had nothing offensively. Teams have been pushing the guards out. They have been disrupting their entry stuff. And even when Caleb did get downhill, and I asked him about this in the locker room tonight, I said, even when you were getting downhill in the lane, he had 2 shots blocked, 2 layups blocked. And it just seemed like everything was contested. He said, yeah, they contested absolutely everything. And maybe Carolina could have gone hard on the rim. I don't know. I just think that Indiana was the more physical team. They were the more alert team. I thought they rotated better defensively. They just did everything at a higher level than Carolina did. And Carolina lost the game as a result. This team has a lot to fix, Brandon, because this isn't the first time. They've had the symptoms of these things even when they were playing the Patsies. That's why when you're 4-0 and 5-0 and you're not blowing out some of the Patsies, and you have stretches like we saw in the first 5 games that we saw in stretches on one side of the floor to the other, and the 3-game losing streak, that's who you are. So right now, that's who this team is, and they have to fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, AJ, the North Carolina's 5-3 now, 3 consecutive losses. They're 0-3 against their Power Five opponents. I'm gonna ask you like I always ask you, or like I usually ask you towards the end of the videos. What does this mean for the Tar Heels?
Go to Blacksburg Sunday. Now, they have been gone since last Tuesday.
Yeah,
And I was talking with somebody at UNC saying that, they're kind of itching to get home. Hubert didn't make an excuse. He was asked in post game, go all the way out to the West Coast. They had 3 games in 4 days. It was awkward because they didn't play a game on Saturday, and it just kind of wore them a little bit. Then they had the 4 overtime game. Then they flew here on Monday. They haven't had a structured practice since before they left to go to Portland. So some of the things that we thought they might fix from Portland, they didn't. Excuse me. And right now they're busing back to Indianapolis and they're going to fly home. They're going to get home at 5 o'clock in the morning. They don't practice Thursday. They'll practice Friday and Saturday. And then Saturday afternoon, they'll head to Blacksburg. They're getting there in time so the players can watch the ACC football championship game for the Tar Heels playing in that. So maybe getting home, sleeping in their own beds, and maybe developing a little bit of normal routine will help this team. But when you take bad shots, just like they took bad shots in Chapel Hill, when you go in and out of playing good defense, I do think that they defended it well at times. I thought they challenged stuff at times tonight. Thought they were scrappy at times, but they still got punished in the lane too often. When you have all the problems that they have, where do you begin to fix it? I think a concern about how they're going to go about fixing that might be Armando's health. Armando's ankle's worse than we thought it was. We found out tonight before the game that it's not that great, and he told us it was hurting. It's affecting his explosiveness. And then he got the shoulder when he blocked Trace Jackson Davis just 3 minutes into the game. As soon as he does the block, he comes down. He's just holding his shoulder. That's left shoulder's the one, left arm's the one that he defends better with than the post. And that affected him. And so his explosiveness was affected tonight, and his shoulder and being able to do things around the basket more effectively was affected as well. But this team had problems before that happened. So what does it mean? It means that this is a club that has a long way to go. This means this is a club that has been humbled. This is a club that perhaps was still trying to find a connection to last March and April, and they've been unable to do it. And I think now, after losing 3 in a row, the potential value of this, benefit of this, is that they now know that whatever happened last March is gone. It's over with. It's in the books. Yeah. It's got absolutely nothing to do with right now. And I think Hubert even alluded to that a couple of weeks ago, but they're still trying to do that. So maybe long term, this is good. They're going to lose games. The redemption team in 2017 lost 7 times. Yeah. So this team has now lost 3 times. They could well lose in Blacksburg on Sunday. It's going to be a hornet's nest they go into. This was a hornet's nest tonight. And that'll be one again on Sunday. So we'll get a chance to see how they begin the process of learning from this. But I think a big thing is whatever these guys think is their basketball future beyond right now, doesn't matter. Because if they keep playing like they have, they're not going to have the options that they thought they were going to have. Mm-hmm. And Roy has always been right. And Hubert's right too when he says, look, win. Max says this all the time. You want to get NIL? Win. Yep. You win, you get NIL. Why did those guys get all that attention in April, May, and June in the offseason? Because they won. Yep. They didn't get attention because they had 9 losses when they went to Cameron Indoor Stadium for Coach K's last home game. They got attention because of what they did from that day on. Yeah. They won. So they need to understand that. They need to cut the cord, all that stuff. And I'll leave you with this. I asked Caleb, and this is on our video. I asked him, I said, how surprised are you? And are you even shocked that you guys are sitting here at 5-3, losing 3 in a row and having all the issues you're having? He didn't go so far as to say shocked, but I kind of, and I don't want to put words in his mouth because he said he didn't say, I don't think I'm shocked, but I kind of thought that he was, and he's trying to talk his way out of it, which is okay. It's human nature, and I get it. Because one thing these kids understand is they've been in these situations before and they pulled themselves out of it. And I think that that's what they're going to lean on. But they've got to understand it's not going to happen just because it happened last year. So everything about last year, whether they pulled themselves out of stretches like this or they were the toast of the town for 4 weeks in the spring, None of that stuff matters. The cage has been rattled. Everything fell apart. It's almost 2023. What happened was 2022. These guys have to understand if they're going to matter in 2023 when the calendar turns, they've got to fix some stuff now because they've got more tough games coming up. The ACC is not very good. It was hard to build your resume in the league last year. I think it's going to be hard to build a good resume in the league this year. So they have lost 3 of these opportunities now. They still have Ohio State and Michigan outside the league. Other than that, it's ACC, man.
Yep.
So they have to pull themselves out of it. And if they do, and I suspect they will, Brandon, I think they're going to be a much, much better team. They'll have as thick a coat of armor as you could possibly imagine. And coat of armor serves you very well once March comes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I do think the fact that they did it last year will definitely give them confidence and keep the team together and let them know that they can do it again.
They can't expect it to, Brandon. They can't expect it to, Brandon.
They have to work. They have to work to get it. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. But I think that's a good place to stop. Again, North Carolina with a 77-65 loss to Indiana out there in Bloomington, Indiana. And North Carolina will be back in action Sunday afternoon against Virginia Tech, 3:00 in Blacksburg, Virginia. Me and AJ will see you after the game. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.